Okay, welcome today to Tamarah's Closet. Today I have a very, very special woman with me who is very near and dear to my heart because I have known this woman for probably over 20 years. She was actually one of my first customers in the beginning of my career as a hairstylist many years ago. And even after I had known her for a long time, I don't really think that I ever realized the magnitude of her talent and her passion for art. I mean, she was always there. We were kind of talking about her hair and things like that. And thank God for the internet today, and especially social media. I have just been blown away with her portfolio of canvases that just keeps flashing the news feed on Facebook. It is just totally blown me away. And I have to tell you, she spent the first 20 years of her art career as a graphic designer doing corporate and freelance work. And it was in 1990 that she actually decided to follow her passion and her dream and begin her career as an artist and a painter. So my guest today is also a signature member of Women Artists of the West, a member of excellence of the Southeastern Pastel Society, juried associate member of the Pastel Society of America, and founding and charter member of the Piedmont Outdoor Painting Society and member of the Pastel Society of North Carolina. Her work can be found in many private and corporate collections across the country and internationally, and that is something that I just learned myself. I did not even realize that, and I'm totally blown away by that too. So she herself and her husband, and they have a black lab named Maddie, live in Greensboro, North Carolina, my hometown. And so I have to say that this woman's mesmerizing talent and artwork of landscapes and farm life have reminded me just what a beautiful state North Carolina truly is. So without any more hesitation, I want to introduce to you my friend and a wonderfully gifted woman and artist, Addren Doss. So say hello, Addren.
Hi, Tamarah. Thank you so much. I can't believe the kind words and everything you said about me. I appreciate that so much. Welcome to my studio.
Well, I love your studio, and I'm looking forward for everybody seeing everything that you've got in there. I'm so excited to have you today. Adrien, you and I have known each other for years, and I don't think I realized how serious you really were into painting, and your work has, like I said, just blown me away on Facebook. So I want you to tell the viewers a little bit about what got you started into painting, and were you an artist when you were a child?
Well, as a child, it wasn't that I did a lot of painting and drawing or anything like that. My earliest memories are I used to go and steal my mother's sewing thread and embroider these drawings I would make of these ladies in elaborate court dresses. So you might say I was painting with thread at a young age, but I didn't think of it like that. But I did take one art class in high school, and then I also took drafting. And that's what moved me into the realm of graphic design that I did for about 20 years. But I just, always felt a call to draw and to paint, even during that time. And after we moved to North Carolina, I had the opportunity to start studying some. And I spent a couple of years at UNCG. They have a wonderful art department, and I studied sculpture, which I loved, and painting and drawing and printmaking, a number of things. And then I decided that what I really wanted to do was paint. And I painted on my own for a while. And then at that time I was working in pastel. That was my medium of choice. And I started taking a few workshops around the country with professional artists. And I learned more taking that route than I ever learned in art school. My mentor and main teacher is an artist from New Mexico. He lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico. His name is Pastel. And Albert is very widely known in the pastel world. He's been referred to as the Grand Poobah of pastel. And one time, Ken, my husband, said, do you want to get better? Then you need to take from the best. Is he the best? And I said, yeah, he's the best. And he said, well, then go. That's what you need to do. So over a 12-year period of time, off and on, I actually took 12 workshops from Albert. I was in one of his first mentoring programs, as a matter of fact. And some years I would take a couple of workshops in a year, and then I'd go several years and not take any, and then I would go back for a tune-up. And he has been a profound influence on my work. But when you look at my work, you don't see Albert in my work. A lot of people tend to, their work will begin to look like their mentor's work. But my work does not look anything like Albert's work. But his head and what he says is always recording in the back of my head when I'm teaching and when I'm working in my studio.
Wow, I mean, every person who has a dream, I believe, needs a mentor, and so it's really wonderful hearing that you found one that is so the best. That's just the best way to put it. But I have to say, I saw a quote on your website, and which reminds me, Adren's website is adrendoss.com. So make sure that you check that out. And your quote said, for me, plein air painting is about recording my emotional reaction to a specific place at a specific time of day. The studio painting that may come from the experience is an extension of the intense feelings and reactions I had when painting outside. Now, I want you to expand on that a little bit, because what is this plein air painting? And it's that, you know, what does it mean, and just more about that quote, because I love the quote that you have. I found that on your website.
It's pronounced plein air. And
Plein air.
Yeah, plein air. It's spelled P-L-E-I-N A-I-R. And if you want to get really technical, it's E-N-P-L-E-I-N A-I-R-E, which is French, and it means out in the open, painting out in the plein air, out in the open air, and it's painting outside from life. And that's how you learn to see. If you don't paint from life, if you don't work from life in your studio with a still life setup or outside from the landscape, you never really understand what light does and how it affects the objects that it's falling on, and all the different kinds of light and all the different colors of light that are out there. The human eye sees so much more than a camera can ever see. And I learned about plein air painting in the workshops that I took from Albert Handel. That was my first introduction to it. I never knew I was an outside person until I discovered plein air painting, and I love it. My husband has a saying, he loves to fly fish, and he has a saying that the worst day on the river is better than the best day anyplace else. And that's the way I feel about plein air painting. The worst day outside in front of that easel is better than any place else or any other day that you could have, because it just makes me so happy. I am completely in tune with what's going on around me when I'm out there. Let me rephrase that. I'm completely in tune to what I am looking at when I am out there. What's going on around me, it could be in La La Land. I have stepped back to look at my painting and stepped on people that I did not know were there, because I was so focused on what I was doing at the time. And that was kind of scary, actually. I scared him and me. And when you're out there as a female, it's always important to be out there with friends and other people. It's not really a good thing to go off a lot of places, unfortunately, by yourself and be there, because you are so focused on what you're doing and what you're looking at that you don't know what's happening around you. But one of the hallmarks of plein air painting is that it's done quickly. So the paintings are very lively and filled with life, because you have to work fast. You have a window of about 2.5 hours as the sun is moving across the sky. And during that 2.5 hours, you've got to get your message stated efficiently, because after 2.5 hours, everything that you're looking at has changed significantly. The light has changed, the shadow patterns are different, the colors are different than when you started. And you want to try to stay with your original concept. When I was in art school, I used to hate it when a professor would say, "What is the concept of this painting?" I was like, oh my God, I don't know. Well, the concept is, why are you doing this? What drew you to this? So when you're outside doing plein air painting, it's, why did you choose that scene? What was it about you that made you go, oh, and say, oh, that's it. That's what I want to paint. Because painting is a form of communication. And you are telling the viewer of that painting what you felt about what you were looking at during that moment of time at that place. That's where that quote comes from. And a lot of times the paintings you do outside, they're not always finished paintings, they're sketches. You're gathering information. And if you're lucky, you get a finished painting that is worthy of framing and hanging on the wall. But they're not all that way. But it doesn't matter, because if you're not out there gathering that information, then you cannot be successful, I don't think, in the studio. The two go hand in hand.
So when you're painting out there, you're not really, you're literally doing it right then. And, you know, I haven't even thought about that, but it's even more important to you as a painter than a photographer, because they have to deal with the sun too, but they can just snap the picture, several pictures in a quick amount of time, but you're dealing with, you're actually physically painting what you're seeing. And so the sun changing the view of everything, it just never really dawned on me. I guess I never realized that you went out there and had to paint the entire painting right then, because the next day the sun could be totally different. So, you know, that's fascinating to me, actually, Adrien. I had not even given that kind of thought. But you know, where did you get this talent? You know, is there somebody in your family that had artistic abilities like you? Because you're really gifted. And I'm always curious to know is if there's someone else you know, that maybe you got this from somewhere in your family tree somewhere.
I have no earthly idea. No, not that I know of. My brother is a very gifted photographer, amateur photographer. He loves to take pictures, and he has a really good eye, and he's very good at it. And so maybe there's something there. And some people talk about talent, but one of the things that I've learned, and I do believe that, is that you have talented people, but you also have people that work really hard. And this art thing, it's a learned process. You learn to draw. You learn to see what you need to look for. You learn to see. You learn about color. You learn about light. And then you put it all together. And you can have someone who's very naturally talented who just good at it. And then you have someone else who you may not think is as talented but works really hard. That's the person that's going to rise to the top and is going to succeed.
Right. So, and obviously you just, you know, but I remember one time being in your home at a Christmas party or something many years ago, and there was a painting there and I can't remember what it was now because that was so long ago. But obviously you just keep, you know, progressing and changing, and the thing that I find interesting is that people who are highly gifted and talented or have a type of skill like this, whether it's an art or a particular trade that they're doing, they always kind of seem to find their way into teaching others their gift. I know when I was working where at the salon I worked at Panache, where I actually met you, I really enjoyed teaching the new young assistant hairstylists that came in, and I would teach them after hours, and I found that teaching was something that I was actually very good at. And I know that you teach art. How is that for you, and how has that, has your teaching influenced your own paintings and furthered your career as opposed to taking it to the new level? Because, they say the best way to learn is to teach. So how does that influence your paintings, as you teach?
I love to teach, and that's another thing that I discovered about myself because of this. I've only been teaching maybe 5 or 6 years, and the first time I did it co-taught with a friend who is a very experienced teacher, and it was a surprise to me how easy it was and how much I had to say. And I just feel like I have a responsibility to share what I've been lucky enough to learn. And it's just something that I really, truly enjoy, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from my students, so that's very rewarding too. We all like to get the big head and be told how good we are, stuff like that, but it's important to turn that around on your student and make sure that they have a really positive, uplifting experience. And I know you, so I know that what you share, the way you shared your work with your students all those years ago. And I teach at a couple of different places. I prefer to teach workshop, which is a concentrated maybe 2 to 3 day workshops. Every now and then I'll go 1 day. And I teach at 2 different art schools. One is in Galax, Virginia. It's called the Chestnut Creek School of Art. And the other one is in West Jefferson, North Carolina. And it's the Florence Thomas Art School. Both places are wonderful, and they are both nonprofit organizations that are dedicated to increasing the base and the knowledge of art in their areas. And both schools do more than just painting and drawing. They're involved in fiber and photography and music and just everything that will enrich their communities. And they're wonderful, wonderful places. I also teach on my own, and I have an artist friend here in town who's about to start a workshop series here in Greensboro, and I've got one in the works that we're hoping to do the end of April here in Greensboro. And most of the time when I teach, I wind up teaching pastel. That's what people ask for, because there are a lot of people in our area who teach oil painting. We have a lot of artists in Greensboro, a lot of amazing artists in Greensboro, as a matter of fact. But there are not that many who teach pastel. And the medium is becoming more and more popular again. It's a very old medium. It's been around from the beginning of time, if you want to think about it. Pastel painting is nothing but, pastels are dry pigment with a small amount of binder. And if you were to be literal about it, the cavemen who drew on the walls with the mud in the floor of those caves, they were pastel painters. And those drawings are still there. The French Impressionists were pastel painters. It just goes way back in the history of art. Pastel has waxed and waned throughout all of art history, and it's really been on the upswing here in our country for the last 15 years.
Well, what's making it come back? Like, what's the advantage of a pastel versus the oil canvas?
Well, I don't know that there's necessarily an advantage, but it's a different process with a similar thought process behind it. But pastels are very immediate. You've got a stick in your hand of pigment, dry powdered pigment that all paints are made out of, but it just has a little bit of something that I can't pronounce that holds it together, and it's rolled, and it's some of them are harder and some of them are softer, but you use a surface that's rough, that has what we call tooth, and you just glide it across. And instead of a pastel drawing, it's a pastel painting, because you're actually using a lot of times the side of that stick or the top of the stick, but it's more like working with a brush than just working with a pencil. And it's immediate gratification. You know, oil painting, you've got to wait for it to dry, go back, work on it again, wait for it to dry, go back, work on it again, in the traditional form of oil painting. there's always also non-traditional forms to work with it, which is called alla prima, where you do everything at once, which is closer to what I do. But it's just different. They're two different things. The pastel paintings have to be framed under glass, and a lot of people don't like that because they don't want to deal with the glass, and they don't want the glare in their house of, you know, the light coming in from the windows hitting the glass, and you can't see the painting as well. But there are a lot of wonderful modern glasses that are museum quality and not glare that address that issue. But people just tend to think an oil painting is better, but that's not necessarily true. I think that they are equal. It takes the same amount of knowledge and skill to create a good pastel painting as it does an good oil painting. And in some ways, it could even take a little more. Pastel is probably the hardest medium to get a handle on, to learn how to use effectively that's out there.
Wow, I just learned something because I didn't realize. Okay, I know the difference now. I didn't realize that with the oil, you got to let it dry and then you go back, and the pastel is immediate. But did you say you don't actually use a brush? You're using more of a stick?
Yes, pastel is in a stick, and I didn't think to have any of my supplies out, or I would actually show you the difference. But pastel is in a stick form. Hold on a minute. I'll be right back. Talk.
Okay. No, I'm fascinated by that because I really have never known what the difference is, and since I wasn't, you know, someone who was trying to be an artist, I didn't really research it. But, you know, I just knew that there was the two different terms, and I really didn't understand that it was actually a technique, you know, in a process that was completely different, you know, from the two being different from each other, the oil versus the pastel. So that's...
This is a stick of pastel. See, it's a stick form. Comes in all kinds of colors. I just picked up a little container that has purples in it because that's what I could grab first. But see my fingers?
Yes.
Okay. The pigment's now on my fingers. See, here's another. It's messy, but you also have sticks like this. This is a harder pastel. It's not as soft. The color doesn't transfer the same way. And you use them in a couple of different ways. But when you paint with the pastel, you're using your arm and you're moving it and laying it on in using different motions in different directions. And sometimes you'll do it like that, sometimes you'll do it like this. And there are lots of different ways to put it on. And the color doesn't blend together like wet paint. You mix red and blue and you've got purple in wet paint. But here you have to have a stick of purple. But you can take a stick of red and a stick of blue and lay them next to each other on the paper, and your eye, the human eye, will visually blend those together and make a purplish hue. You will understand that you're looking at purple, even though it's a piece of red and a piece of blue next to each other on the paper, which I just think is fascinating. But with pastel, you get broken color. You lay one color on top of and next to another. And with oil, you can do it with oil paint also, but it's a whole lot easier with pastel. And it just makes the color vibrate. And when I show my paintings in a little bit, I'll show some pastel paintings as well as some oil paintings. And you might be able to tell a little bit of difference there.
Okay, great. No, I'm learning a lot today. This is great. Now I have to ask you, when you're painting, for instance, like a landscape, you already kind of cleared some of this up, but do you always do it? You were saying you have a window of time and you do it while you're physically there, but do you ever take a photograph and then do it later, something that you paint later?
Yes. Usually when I'm out painting, I have my camera out with me, and I'm always shooting pictures as the sun moves and things. And sometimes the sun moves and I go, oh, that better, and I'll shoot it with my camera. And I also shoot other things I see around me. that I like, but I want to focus in on what I chose for that day. And then I bring those pictures back into the studio along with the painting that I did that day. And with the two of those, I create a painting. The big painting that you see behind me, I couldn't do that outside. I don't think most people could do that outside. This is definitely a studio painting, but I painted in that location several times. That's actually Grandfather Mountain.
Oh.
And I painted there. Yeah, I've done several paintings standing in that location of Grandfather Mountain. But I wanted the studio painting to be a little bit different than the plein air painting was, and I changed the sky. I added even more wildflowers to the meadow than were there originally in life, because I wanted it to be what I wanted to say about that particular scene on that particular day. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So that helps a lot. Now I have to ask you this, because do you ever just paint an image? Like, do you ever have an image that just comes in your head, something that you haven't seen in the physical, it's just in your imagination, and maybe you're in your studio and you go, you know, I just had this idea of something I want to paint, and you just paint it. It's totally from just your idea. It's not something you took a picture of, or it's just your own creation, I guess, of your imagination. Maybe that's the way to ask it.
Well, every now and then I like to paint abstract paintings. I actually really like non-objective abstract work. And every now and then I'll play around with that. I'll show you something. These are pastels, and these are like color studies, and may turn into a painting the size of that landscape that in oil or acrylic, that I would use these as my jumping off point. But as far as saying making up a landscape, I don't do that. I may take several photographs. I like this part of that photograph, that part of that photograph, and sit down and do some sketches and put them together and come up with a new scene that way. But I usually have to have something to latch onto, so to speak.
Right. No, yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. That's yeah.
When I paint abstracts, I call it looking out of the other side of my head, or looking out of both sides of my head. I do. Years and years ago, I had a one-woman show, and I called it Looking Out of Both Sides of My Head. And in that show, I had a series of abstract paintings and a series of representational paintings.
So basically, an abstract painter is more the one that does that, just totally off the top of their head, I guess you would say. You know?
Yeah. And it's not always, that was non-objective. Those were based on a grid pattern. But a lot of abstract people or painters will actually abstract the landscape, or they'll do abstracted figure work. And they do those out of their head, so to speak. And that's just not where I come from. I just prefer for myself more representational work.
Right. Now, what excites you the most about your work? The beginning of a piece while you're refining and choosing the colors, the actual work itself, or when you paint that first stroke, or are you more excited with the finished product, the finished canvas?
I've never thought about that before. Probably. When you do a painting, you've done your, laid it out. I got my composition down, and I got my great big shapes in, and I got my values in like I wanted it, and I step back and I say, is this going to work? That's the most exciting time, when I step back and I say, whoa, this is going to work. And it's actually going to come together like I saw it in my mind, and the way that I wanted, you know, it's going to say what I wanted to say.
Right. Okay. Now, when I look at your work, Adrien, I can feel the passion just that you have when you're painting it. What was it like when you actually sold your very first painting? That, because to me that would just had to be a very emotional moment, and I would think there were certain pieces that would even be hard to part with after you finished them. Were there mixed feelings about actually parting with a piece of art and that you just poured yourself into? And how did it feel when you actually sold that first piece?
Well, the very first piece I ever sold, I actually sold when I was in high school. And my high school art that I did in that class, been on a long time before I sold another piece. I can't remember how it felt, but I will tell you this. I do have paintings that I will not sell, that I am very emotionally attached to. I have some animal paintings that I will not sell. I have some landscapes of some trips that we've made to Montana that I will not sell those paintings.
Well, I can understand that, but when I look at your paintings, they're so beautiful, and sometimes I look at some of them and I go, I don't see how she would ever part with that, because it just would. It amazes me that you can't do any of them. But this would be a good time to show us some of your art and tell us about it, Adrien, because I know everybody's dying to see it. And so let's let you show some of your artwork.
Okay, well, let me start with some small plein air pieces. And remember, plein air means painting outside of life. And usually when you're out there doing that, you're working small. You're working, this would be like an 8-inch by 10-inch, 14 inches by 11 inches, something like that. And I have some here. This is one of my latest pieces. I did this one just a few weeks ago. And this is a 10-inch square. This is an oil painting. And as I have moved in my career and painted more and more, I have become a little more abstract in the way that I approach a landscape painting. I'm really looking for big shapes. And when I'm outside, one of the things that attracts me to something that makes me want to paint it are textures, lots of different textures, and of course the color. So in this painting, we've got the great big shapes of the cedar trees, and we've got the color of those warm winter grasses. This was a winter afternoon. This was just a few weeks ago. And all the textures that are in those grasses and in those fir trees really attract me. And this painting was mostly done with a palette knife. A lot of times I paint with a knife. I lay it in, my first pass done with a brush, and then I put my brushes down and I pick up my palette knife and I go to town with a palette knife. That's how that painting was done. And this was also done at Price Park here in Greensboro, which is one of my favorite places to paint here because there's so many different kinds of things to choose from. And I've been painting there for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And I have paintings that old that come there. I've probably got 50 paintings, or I have done 50 paintings at Price Park.
Wow.
This little painting, this is a little 6x8. This was done up in Virginia on a little creek up there, and we were actually up there with our grandchildren, and the boys and the dog were sliding down that little flue right there over the rocks and stuff. And that's what I was trying to capture, that water moving over the rocks there.
That is beautiful. The water, that looks great.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Water is a recurring theme in my work. And I believe in working in series, and that means that you explore different aspects of the same subject matter over and over and over again. And one of my favorite places to paint is the coast. It was done near Charleston, South Carolina. When my daughter used to live in Mount Pleasant, and I would get to go down there a lot and paint. She lives in Milwaukee now. It's too cold up there to go paint. but I used to just drive to Charleston just to go paint. I would stay at her house and then go paint all day while she was at work. But this is one of the marshes near Charleston.
Wow. I love the names that you give your paintings.
Well, this
really
one is Reflective Day. Now, another theme of mine are skies. And I love skies and the colors that I see and the movement that I see in clouds. And this quick little painting, let's see. This one was done up at Hanging Rock. And these are the mountains that if you're at the little lake there at Hanging Rock State Park, these are the mountains that are back behind the lake. And I was standing on the dam area, and this thunderstorm came up while we were there. This painting was done in about an hour because that thunderstorm literally came just bounding up over the mountaintop, and you could feel the moisture coming in, and I got my stuff put away right before the rain came.
Wow.
Another cloudy, rainy day up in the mountains near West Jefferson, North Carolina. And this one was actually a demo for one of my classes that I taught up there. I like to teach plein air. That's my favorite thing to teach, is to teach plein air painting.
That's beautiful. Those are all.
Thank you. This one also is a study in warm and cool. Warm being the greener grasses or the treetops here, and cool being that mountain that's back in the distance. And all these colors up here are considered cool colors. And this is a warm color. But you can also, color is so fascinating, you can also turn it around and say that this is a warm color because it's a warm purple, because it has a lot of red in it. A cool purple would be a bluish purple. A warm purple would be a reddish purple.
Right.
So this is a yin, warm and cool in this painting. Another quick little sky study that was done here in Greensboro, probably out off of Lake Grant Road somewhere. Now this next one, this one's a little bit older. All of those paintings were done within the last 2 years. This painting was done on a trip we made to Montana maybe 10 years ago. And it's one of my earliest paintings that I used a palette knife in. And I was standing on the back deck of the house we were staying in, and it was snowing. In September, it was snowing. This was the first snow of the year. And I was trying to capture all of the really subtle color changes and value changes that I saw on that snowy mountain. This was a quick painting, too, because it was cold.
That's beautiful. It looks like a scene in a movie.
Oh, thank you, Tamarah.
That's beautiful.
This is one of the ones I will not sell. This is another older painting of Price Park. And I was interested in, I loved the color, and I was interested in the shapes of the spaces between the trees. And it was done a late afternoon light, which is warmer and more golden than a morning light. And I wanted to capture that golden glow that I would see on those cedar trees out there.
Hold that one up a little bit higher there.
There's a lot of palette knife work on that painting as well.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Now this is a larger painting. This one is an 11 by 14. And this one I did on a painting trip that I took with some of my friends. And it was done down on Oak Island, down on the North Carolina coast. And I was interested in this dark shadow pattern that I saw over here. And I was trying to capture the big shapes that I saw. This whole great big shape right here. That's all one big shape of value. Value meaning, is it how light or how dark is it? But all these colors that are going on within that same great big shape. That's what I was after that morning.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
And where was that? Where was that? Where were you?
Have you ever been to Oak Island, which is south of Wilmington?
Yeah.
Outside of Southport. This painting was done on the marsh side, on the intercoastal waterway side. This bit of water that you see back here, that's the intercoastal waterway.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. And now this one, this is another plein air piece. This is a pastel. And this is, again, Price Park, all those cedar trees. And I love it out there in the early fall and the late spring and early fall. 2 different times they have all these yellow wildflowers out in the meadows. That those are the butterfly and bird meadows out there.
Now, where is Price? I'm trying to think where Price Park. The first
Price Park is at the end of Holden Road, where Hobbs Road, where Hobbs Road and New Garden Road come together. There's a library up on a branch of the library is up on the hill in Price Park. It's just beautiful. You need to take your dogs there and walk.
Yeah, I know. I think I have heard that. The first time you said, I thought you were saying Bryan Park, but you said Price Park. So yeah.
Okay. Those are the plein air paintings that I had out to show you. And as you know, I love to paint animals. Here's one of my chickens. He's actually a rooster. But I loved the golden light, and I purposely, this was done with a lot of palette knife, and I purposely was going after the attitude and the movement that I saw in his feathers, his tail feathers, I repeated in these grasses that were around him. I wanted this movement and carefree and happy attitude about this painting.
I just.
I had 2 more plein air paintings that I forgot to pull up that I wanted to show you. And they're framed and they're heavy. But these are pastel paintings. This is Montana. And this is the same piece of property that snow scene, the mountain snow scene was done on in a different year when it didn't snow when we were out there.
Okay.
But that's Montana.
And that's staying with you.
Yeah. And this is one of my very favorite places on earth. This is Yellowstone National Park.
Wow.
And this is a pastel, and this was a plein air piece. I like to paint larger in pastel outside than I do oil. But this is the Nez Creek in Yellowstone National Park. Ken was fly fishing and I was painting. And Ken was also watching for buffaloes. To me, one of the fun parts about plein air painting is you always have a story. Every painting has a story. I have been run off of painting spots by alligators.
Oh my.
Buffaloes and bubbas. So that's why you take a friend with you.
Yeah, that's so.
You asked me about one of my animals when we were talking earlier.
That's your curly cow, and there's pink in there, and I don't know if the viewers can see it, but that black and you've got some pinks in there. I'm in love with that painting.
This is the pastel painting, and it's done on a very rough ground. Pastels, you can do it on a smooth surface or relatively smooth, or you can do it on a really rough surface and anything in between. And I have discovered over the years in experimenting that I really like the really rough surfaces. And sometimes I make my own surface, which is what I did with this one because I wanted it really rough. And the reason you're seeing all the pink is that the paper itself was actually paint. I put down like an orange, a reddish orange glaze over the whole sheet of paper before I drew my cow and started painting on it. So that orange is peeking through all over the place.
But I love it. That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
And you did a whole series of cows, and you and I both were horse lovers, and you know, and cows are just, they melt my heart. And whenever I see you did a whole series of them, whenever I saw them on Facebook, I just was mesmerized. So I've got 2 of them here behind me, and I see some behind you.
Yes. One of the ones you have behind you is this one right here. And this cow, I've painted a number of times. I also will paint the same subject multiple times. One time I'll paint it in oil, and then I'll paint it again in pastel, because I want to see how the two mediums affect each other. Do I do something different in one than I did the other? So I've painted him before in oil, smaller, and then this is a pastel. But he lives in North Carolina. But this past year, when I was out on a painting trip in Arkansas with my two painting buddies, we came upon this herd of Longhorn steers. Late in the afternoon, it was about 6 o'clock. The sun was really low. The light was incredible. That you hear painters always talk about the light. Well, it's important. The light was just gorgeous, and we're driving down the road, and all of a sudden it's like, put on the brakes, stop, grab your cameras. And there was this beautiful herd of Longhorns, and in that group of Longhorns, there were babies. Wow. And they were the cutest things. This painting up here is one of the young Longhorns. He's like a 8-year-old kid, so he was probably less than a year old. This baby was probably just a few weeks old. You can see the little nubbins of horns are just coming out. The one behind you, over your shoulder on the other side that's laying down, that Longhorn was one of the first Longhorns I ever painted. And that cow actually lived here in North Carolina. In Pittsburgh, North Carolina, there's a farm where the owner has registered Longhorns and rodeo bulls. And that baby was 3 days old when I took that picture.
Wow, you have mastered. When I started seeing your cows that you had painted, you have just, I don't know, you've mastered the art of painting cows. I don't know what it is, but they look, I can get it to stand. They look so lifelike. They literally do. I just can't believe it. I mean, and the other one over here behind me, and the one that you have just like it, I see rose colors in it as well.
Yes, you'll see that a lot in my pastels, probably more than my oils. You'll see more colors like that, because I was trying to get the warm and the cool. It's in the shadow area, and some of the shadows, shadow's not just gray. It's got all this color in it that's reflected light, the light from the sky, the color of the sky, the ground, whatever's on the ground reflecting up into that shadow. And some of it's a cooler color and some of it's a warmer color. And those pinks and rosy tones that you're seeing is part of the warmer part of the shadow, the cast shadow that's on that cow.
But I like that, because I mean, that was one of the things that attracted me to that one there, as well as the first one you showed us, the curly cow, because I love those rose colors. But I wanted to, because you said you didn't have this one, these little sheep or lambs, whatever, baby.
Yeah, they were lambs.
Baby lambs.
That's one of my favorite paintings.
I
called that one Sisters.
That's cute. And then I wanted to show another one. I'll let you get back to it, that you said, I know you don't have with you, because it's one of my favorites, is this beautiful paint horse. The way you've got this mane with the sunlight hitting it is I don't know, that just looks like a photograph to me. It's so beautiful.
Thank you, Tamarah. That's one of my favorite paintings, and that what you're talking about with the light coming through the mane, that's called backlighting, and that means that I was actually facing the sun, so the sun was shining towards me, and everything the body of the horse here, the sun's coming this way, so the body of the horse was in shadow, but the light was filtering through that mane that was hanging down. And you notice around the top of the horse's head and his ears, it's all light. The sunlight is hitting the tops and the outside edges of the body of the horse. And that's one of my favorite things to paint, is backlighting like that. It's just beautiful. And that horse, I've wanted to paint him for years. and I had just gotten a new camera, and he lives out on Lake Grant Road
Really?
in Greensboro, and there's a huge piece of property out there. It's one of the largest contiguous pieces of property left in Guilford County, and there are cattle out there and some horses. And I was out there one afternoon just sort of trying out my camera, and I got that shot of him. And I came home. Sometimes I don't know what I have until I come home and I put my pictures on my computer and look at them in Photoshop. But I just was thrilled when I came up with that. And I will paint that same image again in pastel because I love the image and I want to see how it's different from one medium compared to the other medium.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping this baby comes home and comes in my home too. You know, I mean, I'm such a horse lover, and I've never had a paint horse, but I've always, you know, because I'm into the Arabians, and they do have paints in Arabians, you know, but for some reason I always end up with a chestnut. But this horse is just gorgeous. I really do love it.
Well,
but,
I titled that painting Adobe, and that title came from paying homage to the Native Americans, where the paint horses, that's what they had. They had, you know, that's where they came from. The wild horses, probably the Spanish brought them over, but we know them as the Native Americans had paint horses out west, and his color. The coloring of him reminded me of adobe walls in the Southwest. And so that's why I called him Adobe. I don't know his real name, but to me, he's Adobe.
Well, he's beautiful, and that mane is just, that's gorgeous. It really is. So, was there anything else you wanted to show us?
Yeah, one more little thing.
Okay.
Pet portraits.
Oh, yeah.
You know I love to paint dogs, and you shared so many of my pet portraits on Facebook this week. Thank you so much. I've been doing pet portraits for probably 8 or 9 years now, and it all started because I wanted to give a friend a gift, and I did this little bitty, like that big, painting of his black lab. And it mushroomed from there. But I paint tons of pet portraits, and I love painting them. I love meeting the dogs. What I really like to do is go and photograph the dog myself. And if the dog lives within 2 hours of Greensboro, then I go and photograph the dog myself so I can really see his personality and his coloring and his eyes, and really try to capture the spirit and the personality of the dog or the cat. I prefer dogs, but you know, I'm a dog person. But so are you. But this is something I love to do. And here in Greensboro, I have to do a little bit of advertising here. Here in Greensboro, I'm represented by Tyler White Gallery over on State Street, and I've done a lot of pet portraits over the years for them, and they also have my landscapes. And then there's a shop in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, called Peacock Alley Gifts. And I do a lot of pet portraits for them, and they have a number of my paintings in their shop also. So if you're in the Raleigh, Chapel Hill area, you can check in to Peacock Alley. And if you're in the Greensboro, Winston-Salem area, come on over to Tyler White O'Brien Gallery.
Yeah, and Adrien, make sure I'll be doing a blog about this interview and about you, and also a bio on you. And so I'll get all that information and links, and make sure I have all that in the blog so that anyone coming to my site will find you that way as well. So, did you have another dog you wanted? You had so many great dogs that boxer I saw, because that boxers have been one of my favorite breed of dogs since I was a kid. It was one of my first dogs, not the first, but.
Well, all the dog paintings that I do are commissioned. So they go directly to the owner after they're done. This dog, his name is Henry, and he belongs to the owner of Peacock Alley Gifts, and I've painted him a number of times, and I use them as samples for my work, so people can see what I do if they want to touch it, feel it, hold it, instead of just looking at pictures on the website. Right. So that's why I have this one in the studio.
Well, I'm going to have tons of your pictures in my blog as well. So for anyone watching this, the replay or the live version of this, just stay tuned to my blog, and you know, I'll have all her dog stuff on there for sure. Since you know you can't see it, because your dogs were really great. I mean, well, everything has been great, but your dogs were just you know, fantastic. But speaking of commissions, how does someone commission your work? You've done so many pet paintings. And you said you like to go there, which I did not know that, and that's even more exciting to know that you actually do come photograph them and learn their personality. But how does someone commission you, Adrien, to do that?
The easiest thing to do is go to my website, and you can send me an email to the website, and addrendoss.com. And there's a tab on there about commissioning a pet portrait, and there's a price list in there, so you know up front what things are going to cost, and yeah. And then there's a little description about what, you know, the process and everything. I make it absolutely as easy as possible for you, and I can do it framed or unframed, whichever you prefer, oil or pastel, whichever you prefer. But I really do like to meet the dog and take the pictures myself, because I think that I think my work is better then, because I have a connection animal then, and to me it's all about their noses, their eyes, and their ears. That says that this is your Shih Tzu or your black lab. It's the way they hold their ears and their noses and their eyes.
That's great, because see, I didn't know. I just assumed that you went by a photograph that someone had already had. So to me, that makes it even more personable that you have actually met the, you know, met the animal, and that's just, I think that's very endearing as well. It sounds like that part of your business, like you said, just mushroomed. But let me ask you this, Adrien, how do you further your career as far as challenging yourself? Are you constantly on the lookout for new challenges that take your work to the next level? How do you keep yourself growing as an artist?
Yes, I am always on the lookout for the next challenge, and I study other artists' work, past masters and current masters. And I paint. And I mentioned earlier going on a painting trip with my painting friend. I have two buddies, Amy and Julie. One lives in Breckenridge, Colorado. One lives in Bella Vista, Arkansas. They both used to live in Winston-Salem, and that's how we met. But we've been painting together since 2000, so 15 years. And now that we live apart from each other and we can't go out all the time together, we meet up and have a painting trip. But in addition to that, we give each other a monthly challenge. One of us chooses a topic, and the other, we all three have to create a painting on that topic. And it could be a particular subject matter, or it could be a size, or it could be change, you know, do something different. But we challenge each other that way. But mainly, the main thing is you keep painting. And you keep looking, and you look at what other people are doing, because it is so inspiring to see other people's artwork. And that's one of the things I love about Facebook. I have so many artist friends on Facebook, and I get to see so much beautiful artwork. And I try to share from time to time. If something really, really, really hits me, I share it because I want the rest of y'all to see it too. But I guess that's how I keep it going. And from time to time, I go take a workshop. I need a boost. I need to learn something new. If you don't keep learning, you stagnate.
Right, you do. And workshops, that would be fun. But what would you say is your biggest challenge in your career as an artist? What's the biggest challenge that you face?
Probably getting my work out there. And thank you, Tamarah. it's getting it seen. You know, artwork, painting and artwork is a form of communication. And if it's sitting in my studio, it's not communicating with anybody. So I you can tell I'm not shy. So I love to share my work with people. I love to share what I've been able to learn with people. And the only way I can do it is to get it out there. So that's the hardest part.
So it's just marketing it. But
yes, yes.
But you know, today with the internet, you know, we have the world at our fingertips now, so we have so much more opportunity than we did years ago, when we didn't have the internet, and social media has just propelled that. It's just exploded it, really, because now you can meet people and show your work and products to people all over the world, just on social media.
And that's very true, and I have met new friends that way, and I have gotten some commissions that way, and have paintings that live in Portland, Oregon now because of that, and in London, England because of that. So yeah, and that's an important thing for artists today.
And you know, it amazes me that you do have paintings all over. I had no idea that. And so one of my questions to you was, what would you tell an aspiring artist who would like to have their work in a gallery? How do they get started with that part of their dream?
The first thing you have to do is make sure you have a body of work. You can't just have one or two paintings. You've got to really paint for quite a while before you approach a gallery. You need a cohesive body of work. And you sort of look at galleries and see what galleries have work that's similar to mine or on the same level as mine. And you visit that gallery and you look at what they've got, and then you ask them, are you talking to new artists? Are you accepting portfolios? You don't just sit down and get a list of galleries and put CDs in envelopes and stick them in the mail and mail them. They're not going to look at them. You need to make contact with that gallery first. It's really important to visit it, to say hello to the people there, to look at the work that's there, visit their website, see if you think your work would fit in with what they already do, and then ask them, or some of them on their websites have a tab that says new artist, and you can go and see what their procedure is. Follow their procedure to the letter. You only get one chance to present yourself in a positive, professional manner. So don't just walk in off the street carrying a bunch of paintings and say, hey, will you look at my paintings? It doesn't work that way. You need to present a packet with images and your resume and your artist statement. And you don't have a long resume. You don't have to have a list of awards and things like that, but you have to have something there. You have to have done something. You need to join art guilds, local art guilds, and show your work absolutely as much as possible. One of the things I tell my students, because so many of them are pastel students, I tell them, I want you to join the Pastel Society of North Carolina. Then I want you to join the Southeastern Pastel Society. And I want you to try to join the Pastel Society of America. And I want you to participate in their shows. If you live in the Winston-Salem area, join Associated Artists of Winston-Salem. Wherever you live, there is an art guild there somewhere that you can join and have a community of artists around you that you can learn from and feed off of, and there will be shows and opportunities for you to hang your work. And that's the first thing you've got to do before you ever approach a gallery.
Well, that's I wanted people to know that, so that when people saw this video who were just starting out, because a lot of people starting out, they do feel a little lost. They don't know what to do, how to take that next step. And this next question kind of, I'm leading into that, because this is something that because I am all about promoting and pushing people to dream big and pushing them to believe that they can take their career or to the next level. This is something I always like to ask. Where do you see yourself taking your dream over the next years, Adrien? Do you dream of owning your own art gallery one day? Is that something you ever entertain the idea, or what? Where do you see yourself headed?
No, I don't want to own my own art gallery because I would have to do that instead of paint. I guess when you ask that question, I want to keep getting better. I want to be the best I can be wherever that shakes out. I want to continue to have opportunities to show my work in different venues and have, show my work to a wider audience and just keep painting. But I guess my main goal is to be the best artist I can be, the best painter I can be, and then to share that with as many people as I can.
Well, that's a great goal, and you're already doing that, and you're already a wonderful inspiration, Adrien. And the fact that you are teaching to me is kind of one of the best ways that we can give back when we have anyone that's already created success, or even if they're just working toward their success. You don't have to wait till you're a huge success to start teaching. And to me, it's just a wonderful way to give back. And you just agreeing to be on this show today, Adrien, is a huge way to give back, because you've given me a great opportunity to not only just celebrate you, but it's an honor to have you here. And because you are so wonderfully talented and you are very successful. And so I just wanted to say how I hate even wrapping this up today, but it's just been amazing to have you here today, Adrien, because I remember when I first thought about having you here, I was like, well, I don't know if she'll want to do this or not, but I said, you know what, I think she will, and I just went for it, and I'm so glad that I asked you to be here. And because I know that we're going to be seeing so much more of you, and just on the internet as well, on social media, because your art really is captivating, and it's a wonderful display of storytelling, I guess, so to speak. And it also speaks about how beautiful North Carolina and Greensboro is as well. And I appreciate you reminding me that, because sometimes some of us, we're not out in it enough, and we kind of forget that where we live is still beautiful. So I want to thank you for being here today, Adrien, and thank all those who are watching. Make sure that you check out Adrien's website at adrendoss.com, and stay tuned to my blog, tamarahscloset.com, because I'm going to be doing some upcoming blog articles about her, where I'll have a lot of her art featured, and especially a lot of things that she couldn't show you today, like the pet portraits and stuff. So there'll be a lot of upcoming articles, and so thanks again, Adrien, so much for being here today.
Tamarah, thank you so much for asking me to do this. I am so honored that you wanted me to do this. I have loved talking with you. I love sharing my work, and this platform that you've made possible to me is just amazing. And what you do is amazing. And you're right, we've known each other for 20 years, and I am so proud of you.
Well, thank you, and I'm proud of you. Like I said, it's amazing how I didn't realize how you had just exploded this career of being an artist, and I just think it's amazing how our lives have intertwined. We started out, I was doing your hair, and now I'm having a show, and you're on the show. We're celebrating your amazing artwork, so it's.
But we're also celebrating you and all of your successes too.
Well, thank you, and I'm excited, and I know you'll come back, and I'm looking forward to that, and just I'm thrilled that you were here today, and I'm thrilled that our internet worked out.
Yes, we had technical difficulties yesterday.
We did. We did like a little dry run or whatever, a fake, and we were having all kinds of issues. And so I prayed all night long that I was like, well, this is going to work, and it did. So thanks again for coming today, Adrien, and I want to thank the viewers for watching, whether you're watching the live or you're watching the replay. I want you to stay tuned because I have a couple interesting guests coming up. One is a young woman coming soon, Kathleen. I hope I'm saying her name right, too. We haven't officially met. We've just spoken over the Internet. Kathleen Heffernan, and she actually is a pilot, but she is also a bikini competitor in the bodybuilding fitness world, and she has written a book called the Bikini Models Cookbook. So she's a chef. She actually is a chef too. So stay tuned for that coming up, and follow Tamarah's Closet. Follow AddrenDoss.com. Follow Addren on Facebook. I'll have all those links out as well, and I also have a guest coming up who is near and dear to me, and she is we were friends in high school, and it's going to be a different guest. She's facing an incredible, challenging journey. She's been diagnosed with ALS, and she's going to share her strength and hope to people who are facing this horrible disease. So stay tuned to Tamarah's Closet. Follow Addren at AddrenDoss.com, and we'll see you in the next show. So thanks for coming, and I'll talk to you here in a minute, Addren. I'm just going to take us off the air. So.